Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today and welcome to Tech Tuesday. I'm Jessica Goldberg, and I'm so glad that you're here for today's fireside chat, Tech, Tickets, and ROI, Smarter Tools for Streamlining Law Firm MBD. This series is brought to you by Society 54 and really inspired by the work that we're doing with INform54, our platform, which is designed specifically for legal marketing and business development teams who want to harness data and technology to work smarter, move faster, and show impact more clearly. If you're new to INform54, it's a dynamic real-time reporting and project management platform that helps teams track what matters, collaborate efficiently, and surface insights that fuel better strategy. Whether you're evaluating your current tech stack or building out a more data-driven culture, INform54 was built to support and scale that transformation. And that's really the spirit of Tech Tuesday, candid, practical conversations with forward-thinking leaders about how we can shift from managing information to actually activating it and using technology to drive those smarter decisions and stronger outcomes and clearer ROI. So today's conversation is really a perfect example of that. I'm thrilled to be joined by Morgan Katz. She is founder and CEO of Ticketnology. And Morgan brings a deep expertise in reimagining how law firms and businesses manage event tickets, a process which has traditionally been very manual, messy, and for many of us, very hard to measure. So under her leadership, Ticketnology has become a go-to solution, boasting a 96% renewal rate and proving how intentional tech can actually transform ROI. We're going to talk about her journey from idea to platform, lessons learned working with high-performing teams, and what to really consider when you're working with an outside technology provider. So no slides, no lectures, just candid conversation with practical takeaways. Feel free to drop questions into the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can, and we'll share the recording with you afterward if you want to revisit the discussion. So please grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive in. Morgan, thanks so much for joining us today. You have really built Ticketnology from the ground up. What pain points did you see in law firms or professional services, for that matter, in terms of ticket management that convinced you that you needed to launch this platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Jessica, first off, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to connect today and just share a little bit about Ticketnology and just the technology world when it comes to marketing and business development. So I sold season tickets for a bazillion years with different teams and venues. And it was always, I'll see you at the game or I'll see you at the event. And if you look at the national average, about 40% of corporate season tickets go unused. And so you'd sell these tickets and then these seats were empty. And so when I was looking for something not in a venue, but staying in this event world that I just love and love to be a part of, it was how do we help companies do this better? How do we take some of that time and effort and administration off of their plate and streamline it? And that's how Ticketnology came about.
That's amazing. And that statistic just astounds me that many tickets would go unused. But I think for most of us who have at some point worked in-house within law firms, kind of also get it because it's a very hard process to manage. So in terms of when firms have started adopting Ticket Booth, either what has surprised you most, either in how they use it or how the ROI that they've achieved, what has been kind of a really insightful thing for you there?
Yeah, I think we thought traditionally when we started this at Ticketnology that ROI would be X, Y, and Z for a firm, and it is not. Sometimes it's just a simplification of the process or the hours saved that matters more than tracking the client spend. And then for other firms, it's the exact opposite. Client spend drives the decisions that they use and how they use the platform Ticket Booth. So it's really unique to how people are doing it. But I will say the usage and the adaptation within the firm is really great. The whole point of the platform is to be user-friendly. Every button is very intentional. We at one point in a release put a button and it defaulted to this solution versus another option. And then when we looked at the reporting in that 3-month period after releasing it, 95% of people were changing that button to the other option than what we defaulted it to. So we made a mistake. We picked the wrong one. And so we changed that over. And it was just those simple little things. But again, if we're trying to save you time and energy and headaches, we also don't want to create one by every order you put in and everything you put in, you have to move a button. That just doesn't make sense for our platform or for our customers.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Well, obviously, using a platform like yours is an investment, and it's not something that all firms are ready to go to right off the bat. I know for personal experience that many MBD teams are still actually managing tickets via spreadsheets and email, kind of the old school way. But what are some early steps that people can take to start moving from those manual processes to being something that's more structured? Maybe it's even before they're investing in a platform like yours, but like to start moving that needle.
Absolutely. I think the first thing that is pretty easy for people to put in place is timelines. Timelines on when you receive reservations for tickets, timelines when you approve those, and timelines when you send the tickets. Digital ticketing is very different than, hey, I'm going to give somebody the tickets, or I'm going to meet them out front and hand a ticket and we're going to walk in together. That's not always the option or the setup. And so when you send someone digital tickets, they then own them once they accept them. So if you are sending out your tickets for all of the NBA games across the season between 25 and 26 right now, and somebody leaves or a client leaves, if they've already accepted that ticket, they own that. But if you put in place some really good guidelines to help you with your approvals and with your process and everything else, that's part of that calendar reminder you already have, or that Excel sheet that you're managing. It's not an additional expense by any means. The other part is when you're looking at your renewals of your tickets, how much are you spending and how much are you using? If you're not using your tickets, then you're losing that money. Could that be better allocated to a platform? And at what percentage are you going to be comfortable allocating that to a platform versus tickets, or in addition to tickets?
That's really good advice. Well, one of the things I wanted to tackle during today's conversation is kind of going broader than just technology, but when firms are adopting different types of technology platforms. So you have an opportunity to work with a lot of high-performing teams. What do you think that they do differently when it comes to maximizing the value of their tech tools, whether it's yours or any others in their tech stack?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen two really solid approaches that are very different, but can also support what they're bringing in on the technology front. One is where just that marketing and business development team are utilizing the tool. They're going to be the guinea pigs. They're going to use it, and then they're going to share it with the rest of the firm, but they're going to know, they're going to be the experts in it, and really champion that after they've used it and made sure that it makes a lot of sense. The other one is Band-Aid off, and we're just going full firm where everyone's going to do this. And oftentimes we see that's driven a little bit by something might have happened, or there's a corporate change, a company change to fix this process, adjust this process. And so when you've got that different level of leadership buy-in, we see people going that way a lot too. But there's so many tools out there nowadays to utilize. A lot of them do offer free trials, complimentary, usage, or you can watch their help desk, their knowledge deck area. I really encourage people to spend some time in that either way, because you're going to learn a couple things. One, is it the right tool, but also how do they communicate to their customers? Do they put everything just online in a knowledge deck and you don't have a support team? Or is it really you have account managers, this is how we work through support, and then you'll be able to see if that's going to work for what you need it to be.
That makes sense. Well, that's actually a good segue into my next question, and maybe you just answered it, but what advice would you give firms when they're evaluating other external technology partners, and what separates a good fit from maybe one that's not such a good fit?
Yeah, this gets really tricky, and everybody wants to, bat 1,000 on this, and sometimes the technology just isn't what it is. Really talk to referrals if you can. Ask the sales rep or the company for those referrals. If they've got them in your industry, in your firm size, in your marketplace, whatever makes sense for you for the technology, but ask for some referrals. And then again, I really like to send people to, how do they handle support? Because you're going to need it at some point, no matter what the technology is. And if that's not going to work for you, then there's a different element to consider. The third part of that support is, if your IT department needs to be really involved in bringing on the technology, have them talk to support. Because if that's going to be stage one of this of getting it started, then that needs to make sense and everyone needs to be aligned there.
That's a great point, because I feel like sometimes when we're in-house, we kind of tend to operate in our marketing and business development silo, but more and more it's been crucial to have that really good working relationship with the IT department and to have them aiding in some of these processes and implementations.
Yes, we love it when they come in early versus later, because then we have the same conversation from the beginning versus going round and round.
Right, right. And people think about different things too.
Yeah.
So that's important. What about, when a team is looking at buying some new software, how can they ensure that they're actually driving adoption and behavior change across the firm? I think no matter what, lawyers don't like change, right? We've all experienced that in our in-house roles. And so, whether it's a new initiative internally or a new technology platform, it's always interesting to hear different perspectives on what you think helps really drive that adoption and behavior change.
Yeah, I think you have to look through your customer profile or your user profile in-house, right? So who's going to actually be using it? Is it the attorney? Is it their assistant? Is it certain levels of attorneys, or is it an all firm thing? And that can really drive how you do rollouts, but also how you do trainings and you set up those user profiles within the system. And so we see it across all different ways. Sometimes the attorneys actually don't touch our software. Everything comes in from the marketing business development department still, or from a select few, or from an administrative assistants, anything of that nature. And then others, they're in there booking and using everything, and it's great, and it works well no matter how that firm has decided to set it up. But once that marketing, the champion in marketing and business development has said, this is our user profile and this is how we want it to be used, putting those guidelines out there from the beginning eliminates a lot of those questions, but it also lays that ground for expectations on, yes, we do need you to participate in this if you want these tickets, or if you're going to put in this in the CRM or whatever else that is. But showing them use cases we found with attorneys makes a lot of sense, whether it's number, whether it's a case study, whether it's just another referral from another firm, giving them examples. Think about them finding case law, giving them examples helps move that really far for them really fast.
That makes sense. I'm going to put you on the spot here because this is not something we talked about before, Morgan, but it made me think of it while you were talking. Have you guys observed any generational differences in the tech adoption, particularly among lawyers, or perhaps maybe the MBD crew too? And how has that played out?
Yeah, there's way more technology than there was 5 years or 8 years. And even in the sports industry, COVID fast forwarded sports tech 10 years. Now it was behind 20 years, so we're still not caught up to 3 calls. But it's fast forwarded everything really fast. Generational, different teams. But then the other side of that is some people are pulling back with how much AI is in a product. Does that work or not work for their company stance and company policy on things? So we're seeing a little bit of both. It's very dynamic changing though right now. And there's also a lot more open conversation. Whereas before, an IT department might have said, this is the criteria to bring on a new partner. Now they're saying, okay, well, we can look at it if things are different or it's changing. So it is definitely evolving, definitely changing generations, AI based or not based, and then what that firm's approach to technology is advancing or has changed in the last year.
That's just so fascinating. All of the different things in flux right now that can be impacting it. Well, I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk more broadly about the tech landscape for a minute. When you look at the law firm MBD space more broadly, what do you see are the biggest opportunities for technology to create scale and accountability?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple tools. There's something that sports sales has a little bit to do with kind of business development within law firms because it's very personalized. You have to understand someone's conversation about, is this their favorite team, where they live in the marketplace, and that very much carries over to that connection that you're making. So I think that there's something to be said about using a tool that could help with presentations, with deliverables to clients, whether that's a format, an online proposal that can be automatically updated, and then that new version is shared to the customer. That's something that sports teams are using a lot of. But there's just these different tools to do these personalized development process, whether it's proposals, pitch decks, RFPs, even to a degree, that is really interesting to me. But I also am seeing more and more of it in that marketing space with going into firms and beyond the firms.
That's really interesting. And I can speak to this a little bit from an Inform54 perspective and the clients that we're working with. The other thing we're seeing is the more data and justification that you can come out of it with on the back end, I think the more successful you are in being able to scale it and really drive that accountability. So for example, in our platform, we look a lot and help firms a lot analyze where is the time being spent on different projects and initiatives? How much is that costing you? It may have the hard value cost like a ticket, but there may be the process behind it or a process behind putting on the event. And what is all the staff member time taking to in costing that? And then also helping you kind of make the case for those additional resources, whether it's adding more people or more technology platforms like Inform54 or like Ticketnology. So it's really interesting to kind of see how that plays out. But I think data is power, no matter how you look at it there.
Absolutely. And I think that ROI conversation about hours spent on things, that time management, that wasn't part of the ROI conversation 3 or 5 years ago, but it's definitely part now, to your point of like, where's that time being spent, and you guys being able to help track that and showcase that. Like, that's a big piece that is newer in some firms' conversations.
Absolutely. Well, one other thing we're noticing is when you're looking at specialized tools like Ticketnology, working alongside broader platforms like maybe Inform54 or others, how are they creating a more connected tech ecosystem for firms? And I'm just curious what your experience has been with that.
Yeah, I think we all wish every tool connected and talked together, and sometimes that's not how they work. Some do connect great, but I think what we are seeing is consistency in wanting how the user experience is, and not just the visual effect, but is this something that I can access through, single sign-on? Is this something that I can access in different areas and then connect it or export a report real easy and have it automate an email over to, accounting, whatever that is. So we're seeing how can it connect. It doesn't have to connect perfectly, but it has to be able to do some sort of step that person couldn't do, right? Going back to our time capital we were just talking about. Great, we're saving time, but are we also saving steps with that time? And so there's a difference there for some platforms and how that connects and how it doesn't. And so that's really important and a key thing we're starting to see more and more of.
I love that idea of how you're saving steps. I think another thing we're seeing is like, how can we integrate the data that's coming out of these things a bit better? And one thing that we're seeing with a lot of Inform54 clients, and it depends on the sophistication level of the firm, or maybe less so sophistication, but more budget of the firm too, are utilizing some dashboards. Like I think some of the large firms are using things like Power BI to create a dashboard that can connect to a variety of their internal tech platforms, but bring the data together to a single place, ultimately kind of saving the stuff like what you're talking about. But even some of our more budget conscious clients, we're seeing use things like smart sheets quite a bit, and they're creating their own dashboards, which is a really interesting concept, but you can really get at exactly what is important to you and your firm and what they're wanting to analyze in the moment and really bring all those puzzle pieces together.
I totally agree. I think one of the things we're seeing too is people are saying, yes, we want everything to integrate, but if it doesn't, can we find a way around it, whether it's Zapier or an API connection through X, Y, and Z, to then, to your point, going back to those dashboards and connecting everything. There's a lot of terminology, but there's also different ways to do things, and not everything has to work perfect. If you are really attached to this system and want to integrate this and they don't connect, there's ways to use other tools, and we're seeing more and more firms do that, again, with open AI sourcing as part of it, but also non-AI sources to be able to control that information, which is really valuable to firms.
Absolutely. Well, when we're talking about integrating all of these tech tools, I can't ignore the fact that a lot of firms are feeling overwhelmed by the number of tools on the market too. What is your advice on where to begin with building or refreshing a tech stack?
Yeah, it's there's definitely how many subscriptions do you have, a whole subscription budget for a lot of companies, a lot of firms now, of like, what does this look like? And so I think it just depends on what's the North Star for the firm, right? What is the main goal at that time? It's not going to be the 10-year goal probably, but that 3-year goal or even that 18-month number and North Star that they need to look at. And that's where the first part goes into. Then it becomes everything else. You can almost think of it as a must-have and a nice-to-have categories, right? So to hit those numbers, to reach that level, that's going to help sell this or any other tool to that managing partner, to that approver, to say, if we can use these funds for this, this, and this, we'll hit this will help us get to this number, and here's why, and here's how. If you can connect those dots, not only will it help you and how you're not just being thrown tools, but you're having a say in what those tools are. And at the end of the day, proving the point up the ladder that says, this is where we should invest our money for the subscription part. And then there is, going back though to basics, if you don't have a system, you got to start with the basics, right? You got to have a great system to be your foundational piece. And so you can't reach that North Star with all these really good tools if you don't have a solid foundation. And so that's got to be kind of where the question starts, and then take it from there to that North Star.
I couldn't agree more. When we're working with our clients, we're kind of seeing that too. Number one is obviously aligning not only with your department's priorities, but with the firm priorities to get the buy-in that you're talking about. But number two is also addressing those pain points, because those can be the hindrance. So if your processes aren't in place, or you kind of are all over the place, you need to figure out a way to address those pain points to allow you to move forward to achieve those goals. And then I would say the other thing we're finding in working with clients is that some of the tech platforms have overlapping features. And so really finding somebody internally willing to kind of dig in and do that analysis to say, are we actually leveraging to the full capability everything that we have in our tech stack? If not, what are we ignoring right now that we could be better leveraging? And then what could we be using or using to fill in the gaps, so to speak? So a lot of times there's some very tech savvy or very process oriented people internally within firms who are willing to kind of take that effort. But I know, for example, Society 54, the group that we work for and present, can also provide an external consultant to help firms do that too. So regardless of the budget or the size of the firm, I think that that's an important place to start.
Absolutely. And sometimes you need that really good mix too, right? IT departments, they love to do the research sometimes, if they have the bandwidth to do it. But also, are they looking at it in a way that the marketing department's going to utilize it versus just how IT sees it? And that's a great way that Society 54, that IT department and marketing can all manage together or work together for a really good outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's think about the future now for a second. If you had to make one prediction, what's the next big shift in how marketing and business development teams will use technology over the next 3 to 5 years? What do you think that is?
I think every marketing and business development team will have a technology seat on their team. So whether it's a technology coordinator, someone from IT that's assigned to them, but everyone will have it, because there's no way to keep up with everything, but also there's so many great tools. You're going to need somebody to be that product expert internally for you to help you with that foundation and those processes. So I see that expanding in teams that don't have that role right now, whether it's a consultant, whether it's a full-time, whether it's a team member from IT that's assigned, lots of ways to break that apart, but that's going to be there too. Every team's going to have an AI protocol and stance, and every team's going to have a software protocol and stance if they don't already. They're going to have more rules around what they do, why they do it, how does it help them. But we're going to see much more systems being put in place around these. The flip side of that is there's going to be even better tools, even more integrated tools, even more connected tools to be able to use, so that that person on that team that's leading, the marketing, is going to have everything that they want available to them and work in their flow. And so it's not going to be, here's how this system works and you have to adopt to it. It's going to work for that person's flow, which is going to allow a lot more creativity, a lot more time saving, and just other options for them.
Yeah, it's so interesting because so many people talk about, well, is AI going to take people's jobs? Or, but the more I see the practical applications in firm, I think we're all expected to do more and more on a daily basis, but I think it allows us to do that more efficiently. But I don't see that negating that in any way.
Yeah, AI is going to be amazing, but it's also the person has to be the best person to do that prompt for what they need, right? They're going to have to be the best AI coach in a sense, to be able to tell it what it needs and how it's going to work, how it's going to set up that workflow. Those 7-step workflows, they still need monitoring. They still need someone to check that they're working and beyond. So it's going to increase and advance things, but the people that are able to do incredible prompts and really tool it, those are people that are going to be super successful with it.
Yeah, absolutely. What about clients? Do you see client expectations influencing the way firms are investing in using the technology?
I could see it happening, and here's why. You can write software real fast now. Everyone can be a software company. Every service-based company, a lot of them are investing in writing a software platform, and now there's going to be way more options. And so that could be something that drives clients. It could be something that drives conflict within a firm of who they take and what they're doing. And different things of that nature. So I can see it affecting some of them. I don't see clients saying, oh, you use this, we want you to use that. But I do see it causing more need for understanding their full business and everything that client has, because every client will have a tech stack, whereas a business coach might have an email right now on a website, and they're about to have AI agents and all these other tools. So I could see it impacting things of that nature.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm going to pause a minute now and just remind everybody, if you do have any questions for myself or for Morgan, please feel free to type those into the chat, because we're going to move into our next couple closing questions, but feel free to type those along and send them if you do have any questions. Morgan, one of the next things we wanted to talk about is if you could give one piece of advice to an MBD team just starting to explore technology solutions, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it's start to see what's out there, but do some in-depth research. We can all put in, even to using AI again, right? We can put in, tell me about these systems, and it's going to give us a good overview, but still click on the site, see if you like the feel of it, read those client testimonials, take it to that second and third step of what you're researching, not just the first part.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and we did have a question come in. This is, what tools or analytics does your platform provide to help firms measure ROI on client-facing events?
I'm assuming for ticket booths. And so we provide a couple different things for like season tickets, percentage of usage, how much money you've spent on that client this season, overall lifetime of that, information on if they cancel or if they no-show. Can be noted in there as well. Time saved from the employee side are some other things that we include in there. Those are kind of the top line ones. Happy to answer any specific question or yes or no or anything of that nature too, if there's another one. We do integrate with some CRMs. It depends on what it is. Not everybody likes to share information still, but we do have some integrations. We have an open API that can oftentimes go through like Zapier or a Base 44 and connect over, depending on what your system is. So again, if you want to shoot me a note, Morgan@Ticketnology.com, I can talk about direct integrations.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, let's just do one closing question here. If attendees could take away just one thing from today's conversation, what would you hope that would be?
If your department isn't tech savvy, like now is a great time to learn about the tools and see what's out there and make that first step, right? Find someone either in a similar size firm or a similar industry or city and figure out what that could look like, but do some research on your own, maybe hire a consultant, look at different resources. But there's some really cool tools out there that aren't huge budget busters that can really make an impact. And so play around with it. We're coming up on budgeting season, throw some money in the budget, even if you don't know the exact platform you want, but plan for it because you're going to need it in 26 and beyond. And so now's the time to spend some time on it.
Absolutely. Start laying that groundwork.
Yes.
Well, Morgan, thank you so much for sharing your story and your expertise. It's been such a valuable conversation, and I think both inspirational, but with practical takeaways for how teams can really streamline their work and hopefully move in the direction of delivering stronger ROI. And to everyone who joined us, I want to thank you for spending part of your day with us. We hope you're leaving with some fresh ideas for how to bring some more structure and accountability and really impact to your team's operations. If today's discussion sparked any ideas for how your team can manage tickets or events or projects better, or if you simply want to evolve your tech stack, we'd love to show you what we're building with INform54. It's a purpose-built platform helping legal marketing and business development teams turn information into action. And we're just really seeing exciting results with firms across the country. So you're welcome to reach out to me directly or just keep an eye out for the follow-up email with today's recording, and it'll include a link to schedule a demo if you'd like to learn more. And then we can also include some contact information for Ticketnology in that as well. So we've got more Tech Tuesday sessions on the horizon. Just stay tuned. And until then, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.